everyone. Mandy Dwight, host of ROS Goss, a podcast about automation and robotics. Also founder and CEO of Dwight and Company, sales and marketing for automation and robotics companies. Um, this is a little bit of an interesting episode. It's something different than we normally do. I'm joined by my good friend, Josh Olgin. He is principal at Direct Recruiters. Josh is one of the very few recruiters that I talk to all the time, who I respect so much in the industry. So I asked Josh to come and join me today for a quick conversation with you, with us. Usually, you see me, this is weird, me being on Zoom today. You watch the podcast sometimes, it's me on an awkward park bench, or it's me, with a colleague, somewhere else on location. We almost never film on Zoom, because we really like the person to person feel of the podcast. But there's some interesting things going on in the industry that Josh and I were chatting the other day. And, there's some interesting transitions. There are some, kind of unsettling, but also some positive things going on in the industry with layoffs, things like that. Um, and Josh and I thought that we can't wait to get together in person. We'll probably see each other at Modex in a couple weeks, but we can't wait to actually have this conversation. This is something that we have to have right now and just get this out there for the audience, kind of really to help the industry. So Josh and I were chatting. Every time I open LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn all the time, that, guys. But every time I open LinkedIn, it's almost like, lots of people looking for jobs. There's been layoffs in the industry, people aren't growing. Maybe I'm just seeing the bad things. Maybe there are other things going on that are more positive. And, I said to Josh, let's get on a call. And, Josh and I chat every now and then anyway about these things. We figured we would record it. What really is going on in the industry, and hopefully give, people looking for jobs some avenues of places to look, some hope, some things like that. But that's kind of the conversation that we're going to have here today.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, am I wrong? Like, I don't know. Like, you're a recruiter, Josh. Like, you're at Direct Recruiters. You taught, and you're specifically in the robotics and automation space.
Right.
A- Am I missing something? Like, I'm opening LinkedIn, I'm seeing mass layoffs. I'm not seeing a ton of people hiring for new positions. Am I getting that wrong?
I think sometimes, on LinkedIn, it kind of shows when a lot of bad things are happening, just like all social media, but it really doesn't show so much when a lot of good things are happening. Also, a lot of companies are very private about their hiring of what they're looking for. So one of the cool things is what I do, it's not so much about so much what you know, it's who you know. So it's all about relationships that I have with hiring managers and companies where they come to me as I'm a trusted resource for them. So it's not so much publicized as much, but it's kind of, still out there. But
Yeah.
the marketplace is it's interesting. There's a lot of layoffs going on right now. There's a lot of companies that are scared, but there's also a lot of companies that are being advantageous and taking, what the market is giving them right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what type of companies, like you mentioned that there are companies that are having some layoffs, like where are you seeing that the most? Because I mean, you're trusted in the industry. People are calling you like, saying, hey, can you help Josh? Like, what types of companies do you think are taking some of the hit right now?
Obviously, big warehouse automation, Amazon, when Amazon loses a big percentage of people, that affects, other companies that were working with them, that were relying on them for their projects to go through. So it's kind of like a trickle down where it's waves that go through the industry. So there are companies out there, there are like subsidiaries or companies that work with or that work on projects strictly for, and they're having layoffs. But also, there's some other companies that just did so much hiring after COVID, where they might have overhired.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of those companies are thinning out a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that in the past with industries, especially like, with my background in robotic startups, right? Like at times there'll be totally a ton of engineering hires, right? Because, we sold the sales team, we sold a big project, so we need tons of engineers. As that project is deployed and we need other resources, those people sometimes get laid off and now we're looking for customer success, or maybe we're looking for more salespeople to sell more projects so that we can hire more engineers that we laid off. You know what I mean? It's like a weird cycle.
That is honestly like where we are right now. I would say over the past 3 weeks, the amount of job orders that I picked up that are engineers, whether they're applications or for pre and post sales or deployment engineers, deployment managers, deployment director, robot programmer, project manager, product manager, all of those engineers and those titles are so huge right now because a lot of sales that were on hold last year because of tariffs have picked up in December and are being sold right now, and those engineers are needed drastically.
So that's interesting. So that's where you're seeing the cycle is right now, is like if you're in project management, deployment, product, customer success, that's what you're seeing.
Yes, because there's a lot of the companies that had those people that thinned them out last year because of the tariffs, and people were, more or less afraid of potential recession, where companies thinned that out because they needed to have the sales to pay the people. Now that we have the sales that are going through, we need the people to come back, and they really need those people for deployments.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's so crazy how that's cyclical like that, right? Like where now, I mean, I'm going to ask a very selfish question because I'm sales and marketing, as you know. Like where, is there a lot of demand right now for sales and marketing people?
Absolutely.
Good. That's I'm
So
saying that for all my friends listening.
yeah, well, I mean, we're seeing, especially in the past several weeks, we're seeing director level roles come out for sales, whether it's on the mobility side for mobile robots or food and beverage for six-axis articulated robotic arms or the robot integrators. I mean, the good sign is seeing robot integrators that are needing to hire people. That means they're getting busy, and that's a good sign that the business is starting to trickle back in, which is exciting.
Yeah, no, that is good. That's hope. And that's really why I want to talk to you today. Like, social media, like, it gives doom scrolling, right? And it shows you the bad news, as you mentioned. And that's really kind of what I wanted to talk about today is like what hope. um like let's say, and I've been in this position before. Like I have been, a part of layoffs, twice, in my career in robotics, right? Just because exactly what you said, Josh. It's like kind of like the cyclical thing, right? What would you tell somebody right now, because that's like the worst phone call to get. Like I think about it, like the time that you get laid off and all of a sudden you have no email, you have nothing is working, and you're just kind of sitting there with yourself. And I had somebody say to me the other day, it's like, this is the first time in X amount of years that I haven't had a job to go to tomorrow. Like what would you tell somebody like that is kind of, okay, what's my what next, especially if you've been at a company for a long time?
So one of the things that I try to do is half of my business is either placing people or the other half of my business is building relationships. So I'm a firm believer in talking to as many people along the way. So when we get to the point where they know they're either going to get laid off or they don't feel good about their situation, I'll get the call and I'll be like, they're like, hey, listen, I'm a little worried about what's happening with my company. Can we start talking right now? And the best time to get a job is when you have a job.
Yeah, I agree.
And in the as I'm progressing with my calls during the day, half of my calls are either recruiting calls or the other half of my calls are just relationship building calls. Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're looking for. That way, it's not so much that I have a bench of candidates that are ready to go, but I kind of know what everybody's looking for. So my job is to take the whole piece of the puzzle and make sure that all the pieces fit properly. So whether it's engineer or sales or director or president, my job is to have continuing lines of communication with as many candidates as possible. So when I do find or they do reach out to me, I already have a good idea of what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, that's interesting, right? Like the recruiters that I have a good relationship with, it's because they built the relationship. And, we see each other out, we hang out, we talk on the regular, kind of see what's going. Like I've had salespeople say to me, it's like, oh, a recruiter called me, but I didn't take the call. And I always mentor them and say, hey, always have the conversation, even if you're not looking, because you don't know. Like a company, there's no loyalty anymore. And I think about this a lot with sports teams, right? Like I'm a huge Boston fan. I mean, when Marcus Smart got traded, I was like, oh my God, how could they do that in the Celtics, right? Like a couple of years ago, maybe I'm still not over it. Maybe I am. But it's like, you know, he was shocked, but it's like that's a company, right? It's a business and you can't take it personally, but you have to have those relationships in place. That way, when you are jolted like that, it's not a cold call to Josh Olgin and saying, hey, I'm Mandy, can you help me? And,
I mean, that's great because that's how it should start off. But right when you get laid off and you call the recruiter and be like, "Hey, I just got laid off. I've been there for 10 years. What do I do?"
yeah,
That's a tough situation that you put somebody in unless it's a very transactional search where it's a contract or something where it's plug and play and you know what you're getting. Typically, once I put a candidate in front of a client, it's roughly 45 days from beginning to middle to end. Because technically, you need to do your interviews, whether it's a Teams call or a regular call. Then after that, it's either on site, and if everything is right and works right, offer will come, should be good. But then you got to put your 2 weeks notice into your current company,
right.
and I would always, always stress with everybody, you never want to burn a bridge because you're never going to know when you might need to cross it again. So do everything the right way. And, it's typically 45 business days from beginning to middle to end is what the process looks like.
That's a good stat. I don't think I ever knew that. And I think that's because it's, like when I was there losing my job, oh my God, how long is this going to take? Right. But I think 45 days I don't think anyone's ever told me that. So that's a good stat to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's typical right now. I've done, searches where I've had somebody where you go put your 2 weeks notice in and they say, thanks, bye. And
Yeah.
you're cut off and that's going to shorten the length of the time potentially by a week or a couple days, but the smart thing to do is always go on the top and do the right thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and this is another piece, right? This is a very small industry. Everybody knows each other. We were joking before the call about Modex. We're all going to see each other and we're all going to, hang out and all that. It's a very small industry. So always have those conversations. And I think, what I heard from you, Josh, too, is it's about building the relationships. It's about always taking those calls and, even being at events. And I mean, you go to a lot of events, a lot of recruiters go to events. um, it's a good time to meet in person and build the relationship even stronger.
I think that's the most important part of my business is relationship building. And also you have to be able to do what you say and say what you do. It hurts when I have to break up with a candidate and say, hey, listen, XYZ company, I know you went for your final, but for whatever reason they decided to move past you and choose somebody
Yeah,
different. But my job is to be open and honest with everybody. So
yeah, I would agree.
I try to maintain transparency. Sometimes it hurts and people get a little upset with you, but it's not me making the decision.
Right. No, I agree. And I honestly, like, I think I'd rather have that candid feedback, about why I wasn't chosen as a candidate. And, I think that that's good to know because the search continues, right?
It
So
does.
I need to know that for the next time.
100%. I mean, if I can say, listen, for whatever reason, you just didn't ask the right questions or you didn't answer the questions or after the fact, doing your due diligence, they didn't like one of the references and they decided to move to the next candidate. So that's the worst part of my job is when I have to tell a candidate before down the line, hey, I'm so sorry, but they decided not to move forward with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, tough conversations, they're never fun, right?
Never fun.
They're never fun, but not putting them off, just getting them done. I mean, that'll keep that candidate really having the good relationship with you because you told them.
And that's what I have to do. I have to maintain a level of trustworthiness, but also honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is interesting, right? Resumes. And the whole resume thing has changed a little bit because everyone's like, oh, who's writing resumes anymore? Because ChatGPT or Claude is doing all of my resumes. Like, what are you see like how good does that resume have to be? What needs to be on it? Can Claude write my resume? Like, what are the devil in the details there?
So we talked about it a little bit before, but like honesty. So if
Yeah.
you're really going to have somebody write your resume for you, make sure that the facts are the facts and it meets everything you've done. Because I would hate to put somebody who says that they're an expert robot programmer in front of a hiring manager and they say, okay, listen, we need you to program this robot like you said you can do in your resume. Go do it. And they're like, I can't do that. So make sure you do what you say and say what you do, and you're able to really meet what the resume is saying that you can do
Yeah, robot programmer, you can find out really quick if you know what
really
you do.
quick.
That's a good, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, so as far as resumes go, are people also looking at your LinkedIn more than the resume, the same amount as the resume? Like what's more important?
So when I send a candidate to a hiring manager, I make sure that I take the resume and I highlight it on the front page of what I'm sending. So like
Okay.
I'm going to send it to a hiring manager. It's going to say about the candidate what their degree is, what they're currently doing, what their salary expectations is. For if this is sales, like what their territory was when they started, what they grew it to, what the EBITDA was, if they're selling on margin, or I like to highlight, 8 to 10 bullet points about that person. So when the hiring manager sees it, because typically hiring managers don't read resumes.
Yeah.
They do what they don't. They want to see if it matches everything, and then they'll go to LinkedIn to see if it matches as well. But my job is to highlight that up front because that's really when the hiring managers are going to call me back and they're going to be like, Josh, please tell me about John Smith. Um, I really need to talk and find out about him. Is it all true?
Yeah, that's interesting. As far as like, let's say somebody gets laid off, they're looking for a job. Should they hurry up, go to LinkedIn and be like, I need to clean up this page right now? Should they proactively do it? Like, how are you thinking about that?
Um, that's a good question. So if your LinkedIn is a mess, I would say clean it up on a weekly basis.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how much people are doing LinkedIn management right now, but typically you just write it and you leave it, but they don't add to it. But if things
Yeah.
are like if you did your LinkedIn profile right now, what would you change about it? Is your LinkedIn profile, do you have it to for notoriety so people understand what you do, or you're constantly doing posts and people are able to go back to it? You're doing that. But if you're a robot programmer or you're a salesperson, maybe you want to go into your LinkedIn and be like, I just sold a $10 million project to XYZ company and maybe get a testimonial from the person you sold it to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like things that kind of make you stand out, like a testimonial that makes you stand out.
Testimonials are the best
Huh, that's interesting.
because
Yeah. I mean,
that's proof in the pudding. Because if somebody says, or hey, I worked with Mandy Dwight and she did X, Y, and Z, and they write that on your LinkedIn, I mean, it just looks that much better.
yeah, I never thought about that, but there is a whole section on the bottom that asks for referrals.
Yeah, I ask for testimonials at least 5 times a year, and
Oh,
I
wow.
put them at the bottom of my LinkedIn page.
That's a good idea. Um, yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, thinking about it, like opportunities right now, that are out there. So we talked about companies that are hiring, like roles that they're hiring. Do these look like systems integrators? Do these look like robotics companies? If so, what kind of robotics companies? Like which companies are really looking for a lot of people right now?
Robot OEMs are always looking for people. So I mean, you've obviously there's Fanuc, KUKA, ABB,
Hmm.
Moto Man. Then you have like Universal Robots and some other companies on the peripheral that are maybe on the collaborative robotic side. But then you've got the standard bots and you've got other companies that are starting to really scale right now.
Yeah.
The startup world that was going crazy right after COVID, that went down a little bit, but there's a lot of new companies out there that are hiring like crazy and they're all looking for really good people.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about hiring managers, and so, part of your relationship as part of your business, as you mentioned, is you have good relationships with candidates, you have good relationships with hiring managers. Um, how do you go out there and find the hiring managers?
So that's a great question. And one of the things that I've done in the past is I've gotten a lot of referrals from people that refer me to people.
Okay.
And there's nothing better for me when a hiring manager calls me and says, "Hey, Josh, we referred to you from John Smith. He's worked with you in the past. He said you did a great job. Can you help us?" So
Nice.
that's part of it. But also it's prospecting. It's when you go to trade shows, it's when you're out and about in the community and you're walking in and you're talking, all I want to do is hand somebody my business card and be like, if I can ever help you, please let me know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what do you think, like, if I think of ideal candidates, and I guess every hiring manager is different, but what are the things that they're really looking for in a candidate other than skill, do you think?
For sales or for engineering?
Either or.
So for sales, we want to know that this person is going to be able to fit in our company culture because that's
Yeah.
huge. Because if you bring somebody in and they want to, if they're the leader or they're part of the sales team or however that may fit, the puzzle piece just has to fit.
Mhm.
Because if they're a very large voice or a large personality in a company that wants to interview them doesn't really deal with that, it's not going to really work.
Yeah.
So the hiring manager would call me and be like, "Hey, Josh, listen, this person is really, really good. They're very strong, but they don't fit our culture. They're too loud of a voice for what we're trying to do. So it's important that like I said, the puzzle piece fits."
And I think that's true, right? Like I think, thinking about culture situations, especially as companies are, working together to solve really hard problems, not only in engineering and sales, but that culture piece is so important.
It is. But there are also other companies that come out when you put the person in front of them and be like, this is exactly who we're looking for. We need somebody who's going to be a trailblazer, burn everything to the ground and do it their own way. But we need to know that they can do this.
Right. Right. Now on engineering, you know, are they just looking for skill for engineering?
So engineers, from my understanding, and I'm learning every day, there are two types of engineers. There's the engineer where you push the pizza box under the door and they push it back when they're done, or
That's
they
so
open
well
up the
said.
door and they say, "Would you like to have a piece of pizza with me?"
Yeah.
So there's two kinds. So a lot of companies right now are looking for engineers that have skill sets where they're extroverts, where they can talk to people, where they're not just going to work in their cube because everything is on social media and we do 100 video calls per day. You know, I need you to be the face of our organization, but you also need to understand how to get the complex problems done.
Oh, interesting. And I like the pizza box comparison, that is analogy. Whatever it is, like that's well said. I will borrow that and I will credit you with that.
Okay. It's just very cool because you get engineers that can talk and engineers that just don't want to have anything to do with any sort of communication.
Yeah, I've worked with both. I mean, I love working with engineers, and you're right, it's different skill sets. It's like, and I think about it in terms of, being a sales leader, who is a customer facing engineer that I can bring into a call for that, kind of credibility of our system, and they can speak well with the end user. So I think about it in terms of that, or also who can be behind the scenes, but that person is like the Swiss Army knife of robotics, can solve every problem behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And they also have to be comfortable in the fact of the matter that they're not tip of the spear, they're more behind it.
Yeah. And some people, I think a lot of people love that.
I would agree. I think a lot of people love it because they don't feel that their name's out there front, that they're just brought in to solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And, pivoting a little bit to talking about candidates, right? So what do you think, and you've worked with a lot of people and we talked about the difficult conversation of, hey, this they're not going to move forward. What do you think a candidate does, like I guess what hurts their chances of getting placed?
That's a hard question. So sometimes it's the hiring managers looking to see if they can work with this person.
Got it.
So if if there's when you go into an interview, I always tell people the same thing. I really need you to be confident. I don't need you to be cocky
Hmm.
because there's a difference. If you walk in and I'm talking to a salesperson and the salesperson, they always have to walk in and beat their chest and they walk in and they're cocky. I could do this, anything you put in front of me, I can knock down. Hiring managers don't want to see that. Hiring managers want you to be confident. Listen, this is what I've done. This is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do to help you. I feel that my skill set's 100% right on for what you're looking for. What are next steps? And there's so many different ways to say that and frame that where you could just come out and be cocky, not confident.
Yeah, that's well said. And you're right. Like you need to confidence, I think, is everything. Like I can come in here and make a positive difference in your numbers and your pipeline in your closed one. And I think for engineering, like I can make a positive difference in, the deployments that you're doing or, the land and expand plans that you have at the end of a palletizing line. Like, it's all kinds of different things.
It is. In engineering, it's more credibility, because they're going to want to know 100%, can you do what you say and say what you do? Because I need you to be able to come in here and do what you're saying you're going to do because we've got all this business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talking about like, and we started this call talking about how there's been a little bit of, uncertainty in the industry, but also the best time to find a new job is when you already have a job. Is it the time right now to make a bold move and to take a new job, or is it safer to stay where you are?
So that's a great question. So it all depends on how much you want people like to have or handle the word change.
Hmm.
So if you're used to your daily routine and your daily routine starts off getting a cup of coffee and then going to the gym and then going to your job, but your job changes, are you able, does the change fit into your routine, into your daily life? So a lot of people don't like change, but again, the best time to get a job is when you have a job. And it's always good, like the famous line in sales is always be closing. So
Yeah.
I don't wouldn't necessarily say we're always closing, but it's always building relationships and coming up with new candidates. That way, I kind of have a Rolodex of really good people that I could go to. Or when I call them out of the blue, it's not so much a call out of the blue, it's just a follow-up call. And I might call you on a day where you're doing really, really good. And I say, listen, I've got that opportunity we spoke about 6 weeks ago. Do you want to talk about it? And now your mind starts thinking, well, I just had this really big sale. Should I really make a move right now? When's the right time? Any good salesperson leaves money on the table when they leave. It just
Yeah.
does happen.
Yeah. That's true. But also, if there's something better, in the long run, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I always tell people, they're like, well, what should I do? I had a phone call the other day with a friend of mine that, is in a safe position, was looking at something a little bit riskier. And I said, you got to sit down, got to make your pros and cons column. And I do that before I make every single decision, whether it's buying something large or moving jobs, even starting my own company, right? Like what are the pros, what are the cons, and make your decision from there.
That's great advice. And when I'm talking to candidates, I always ask them, listen, I know you just interviewed for the third time, and I asked you the same questions. Do you still got those warm and fuzzies in your belly? And I'm
Yeah.
like, do you understand what that means? Do you have that feeling where it feels really good, where you're ready to make a move?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. And if it's back and forth, I can't push them. I can just say, listen. This opportunity is way better than what you're doing right now. The travel is lower. The opportunity for growth is higher. Yeah, I can't make the decision. I can frame it for them to make their own decision, but I can't make them make the decision.
I think fear sometimes, like the fear of the unknown, the fear of the risk, I think that's definitely in the negative column, I think, for some people.
It is. It's, the devil you know and the devil you don't.
Yeah, yeah. And we're about to close off here, but just to leave on a positive note, right? So if there's anyone out there that is searching for jobs, I talked to somebody the other day that is not in our industry. They're in like a med device type of scenario, but has applied for 100 jobs and just kind of, has a job looking, you know, what advice would you give to somebody? I mean, that's discouraging, right? It reminds me of when I graduated college and my mother was like, no, apply for all these jobs. And I sat there for a whole summer and did that to get her off my back, right? But like, what advice would you give to somebody that maybe is feeling discouraged, maybe has gotten a couple, no, we're not moving forwards, somebody that's not seeing a lot out there, what advice would you give them?
Find a recruiter in their field that they're looking to get hired in and reach out to them. And that when I'm talking to a hiring manager compared to 1,000 resumes that just come into their system, they're going to take my call because I'm trusted.
Yeah.
When people are just sending blind resumes, I mean, I get probably 30 or 40 blind resumes a week. And, I try to talk to as many people as I possibly can, but when I put somebody in front of a hiring manager, 9.5 out of 10 times, the hiring manager is going to call me back and he's going to be like, Josh, tell me about this person, or why are you sending me this person? Why did you feel that they're right for what we're looking for? And I would go back to my notes and be like, you said you wanted somebody with this. You said if I have somebody that has this, this, and this, and they're in the location you're looking for, what did I miss?
Yeah.
The and
Yeah.
the quicker that I could get to know, the quicker is better for everybody. Because it's my second favorite answer. Obviously, yes is my favorite answer.
Exactly. And I think that's good. I mean, looking for jobs, like, when you're working with a recruiter, you feel like somebody kind of has your back and you have somebody kind of, steering you in different directions and somebody you can bounce things off of. I think that's good, so I think that is really good advice.
Absolutely. And again, I try my best. I'm not the best for everybody, but we do our absolute best for everybody.
Yeah, and there are some really good recruiters in this space, and honestly, if if I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I'm talking to this recruiter," and I'm like, "Well, do they know robotics and automation?" Because I think there's very select people in this industry. You're one of them, Josh, that know the industry, and I say, don't look anywhere except the people that know it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I will promise everybody all the time is I will never tell you anything I don't know, and I'm always learning every day.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Try to.
Exactly. Well, that's a good way to close. And it is Friday and Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I know normally we would be on site, but I thought this was just something important that we needed to talk about and kind of get something out there to talk about the state of the industry for anybody that maybe is looking right now, maybe is in a position that maybe they're not happy about, they're looking around, just kind of put something out there for those people.
I would agree wholeheartedly. This was
Yes.
great.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. Olgin is over at Direct Recruiters. So he's on LinkedIn. He's like me. He's on LinkedIn every single moment of the day. So, start building the relationship if you haven't already. You know me, but I'm Mandy Dwight, founder and CEO of Dwight and Company. Josh and I have known each other through many robotics companies over the years. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, and we will see you soon.